Greetings and welcome to a classic LGR computer thing. And this time we've got a fascinating hybrid system from 1995, the Power Macintosh 6100/66, DOS compatible. Yep, this is an Apple product built to run both macOS and Microsoft DOS, with the ability to switch between the two at any time and even run programs simultaneously. Check it out. This is precisely my kind of fun right here. Sure, you can perform similar tasks running Windows software and a modern Mac using Parallels, but that uses virtualization software and an existing Intel CPU to do the job. This 6100, however, doubles up on hardware to achieve a high level of integration between the warring factions of DOS and macOS. So in addition to the PowerMax 66MHz PowerPC 601 CPU, there's also a legit Intel 486 inside, working in tandem with the Macintosh half of things to provide two computers in one. As you may imagine, this was not cheap, starting at $2,199 when it hit the market in January of 1995. At least for one with a 2-speed CD-ROM drive, a 500MB hard disk, and 16 megs of RAM, but memory upgrades were very much recommended since, by default, system RAM was split between DOS and Mac. So the total cost could rise to about $5,049 in 1995 if you wanted the officially supported maximum of 72 megabytes of RAM. Yeah, memory was expensive stuff back then. I mean, look at these prices from October 95. Over $1,400 for a single 32 meg memory module, and you needed two of them to max out this machine. Then there's the DOS-compatible PDS board itself that can take its own 72-pin SIM module, so adding just 16 megs to that would have set you back another $700. Still, even without any RAM upgrades at all, the 6166 DOS-compatible was appealing on a multitude of levels for the right customer. You're effectively getting two complete systems in one here, and for folks that used DOS at work and a Mac at home or vice versa, then this was a mighty tempting setup. Yeah, it cost a good chunk of change, but it was still less than buying a 46 PC and a Power Macintosh individually. And if you already happen to own a compatible Mac, Apple also sold the DOS-compatible PDS card on its own for $739. And there were a whole slew of these cards from Apple in the mid-90s too, but this card here comes with a 66MHz 486DX2 processor on board, 256K of L2 cache, and a Chipson Technologies graphics chipset accessing 512 kilobytes of video memory. You also get a Creative Labs Sound Blaster Vibra 16 chipset, providing both 16-bit stereo PCM sound and AdLib compatible OPL3 music for MIDI playback and FM synth sound effects. This passes through the CD-ROM audio header on the Macintosh mainboard, meaning that both DOS and Mac go through the same audio system to play through the 6100's internal speaker. And around back is a multi-function port with a breakout cable providing both video output and a 15-pin gain port. So PC joysticks and monitors both plug in here. Speaking of monitors, there are two ways of displaying DOS. One is to use a single monitor and combine the two outputs using that breakout cable, making the DOS system pass through to the Mac. Doing it this way, a keyboard shortcut is used to switch between DOS and Mac mode, so only one or the other can be viewed even though they're both running simultaneously regardless. Or you can use two separate monitors, one for the DOS card and one for the Mac, by plugging each display into their respective video output ports. This lets you see both operating systems running at the same time side by side, though you can still only use one or the other, seeing as peripherals are shared between systems. Though I suppose you could play a game with a joystick on the DOS side and play another one with a mouse on the Macintosh side, but yeah, not much point to that other than it being awesome. In my case, I'm doubled up on dongles here since the 6100 uses an HDI 45 port for video, and I don't have a monitor that uses that. But for now, let's ignore this array of Apple adapter aggravation, hide it all away behind here like it doesn't exist, and try out some more classic DOS games on our Apple-sanctioned 486. That short-lived Mac startup chord, haven't heard that in a while. Not that it was easy to hear at all with how loud the fans and hard drives are, the latter of which is louder than it should be, but like my local city council, that's mostly due to its age. Anyway, yeah, this particular 6166 received some upgrades by its previous owner, with the aforementioned 72 megs of RAM and also System 7.5.3, an incremental update over the factory installed 7.5. And while there are plenty of powerful Mac things to do on this Power Mac, the DOS compatibility mode is the star of this particular show. The way this works is that you simply press Command Return on the keyboard, and it'll switch right on over into DOS mode and begin booting the system, just like a PC. Mostly, sort of. Okay, I've been beating around the bush this entire video so far, but you may have noticed that I haven't yet called this PC compatible, because it's not. Not exactly. Apple specifically calls it DOS compatible because it is specifically made to be compatible with software for MS-DOS, not an entire Intel-based PC. Due to its reliance on the Apple software used, which manages everything from peripheral sharing to booting the system, it's only designed to run MS-DOS version 6.0 and higher. So that means no OS/2, no Linux, no x86 BOS, no Windows NT, although this does mean that it fully supports Windows 3.1 and even Windows 95, albeit not 100%. But yeah, Windows 3.1 running under DOS 6.22 is the ideal environment for this setup, which is why Apple bundled those with the system. You get manuals and disks for both of them. Some software for the Macintosh and DOS sides of things to communicate with one another, as well as driver disks for the DOS card's graphics and sound. And man, is it strange to see Apple-branded Sound Blaster 16 discs. That is just surreal, even knowing the context. And hearing proper ad-lib music emanating from a Macintosh, it feels wrong, but in the best kind of way. And then there's just the whole act of running PC applications and playing DOS games on a mid-90s Macintosh while simultaneously running System 7. I understand it, I accept it, but it still feels like black magic to me. That's not to say it's better in every way, of course. To begin with, Apple has always had a thing for single-button mice, whereas PCs almost always had at least 2 buttons. So you have to press the equals key on the keyboard to right-click here, so that's a bit of a pain. Likewise for inserting and ejecting floppy disks due to the way Macintoshes are Macintoshes. Inserting a floppy in macOS mounts it as a volume, so if you switch over into DOS, it can't see it. You have to insert the disk while in DOS mode for the A drive to function at all, and with no physical eject button, you'll be relying on the keyboard for that, with Command-E ejecting disks. It's similar with the CD-ROM, where a disk is only recognized if you insert it in DOS first, and ejecting is yet another keyboard command. Then there's the fact that DOS runs slower than it would on a comparable PC with the same 66 MHz 46DX, something especially notable if you haven't populated the DOS card with its own RAM. This is partially due to the memory sharing situation where the Macintosh just uses the system DRAM for video memory and then shares what's left with DOS. The resulting slowdown is especially notable with games like Doom, where it teeters on the edge of playable, running more like a low-end 486 with half the speed this actually has. Compare that to how the Mac port of Doom runs on the Power Mac side of things with the same amount of RAM, and yeah, it's apparent the DOS card has its limitations. Again though, this is partially a memory restraint, so if you drop some RAM onto the card itself, then you can achieve significantly better results. Though it's still not as fast as a proper PC with its own graphics card, and since the Mac's only expansion slot is populated by the DOS card here, any PDS video card upgrade options are off the table, so there's only so far you can take this. Again though, the 6166 DOS compatible was made for a certain type of user that demanded dual system integration above all else. So while it's not a gaming powerhouse, there's a lot going on in terms of communication between the two systems, like the ability to quickly share text between Mac DOS and Windows 3.1. Apple's DOS Clip and WinClip software lets you select, copy, and paste what you see on screen, including texting characters straight from a command line, and even certain compatible images to and from the clipboards for Windows and macOS. And then of course there's local file sharing. In DOS, you can use the MacShare program to access macOS folders as drives, and under macOS, you can easily mount the DOS drive container as a volume and manipulate files and folders that way. Speaking of which, yeah, it uses drive container files to take care of hard disks, much like a software VM. So if you've got the space for it, you're free to keep multiple virtual hard drives and partitions on hand and swap them out using the PC Setup control panel. This is also where you do things like select monitors, memory, serial ports, sound, and startup options, making it pretty painless to swap through a variety of different DOS and Windows 3.1 setups. So despite the hardware limitations and performance setbacks, the Power Mac 6100/66 DOS compatible has become one of my favorite mid-90s machines to play with when I'm in the mood to think different. As a fan of both DOS and Mac gaming from back then, having both in one case with the ability to so quickly swap between the two is just awesome. It's not the only Macintosh to do this by any means, and it's certainly not the fastest machine on either the Power Mac or MS-DOS gaming front. HOS experience on its own here is rather middle of the road, really. But when combined, it's one of those greater than the sum of its parts novelties from a fascinating period in retro computing, so I don't even care. This is a system that lets me play Glider Pro one moment and Commander Keen the next, and that's good enough for me. If you enjoyed checking out this 90s computery goodness, then might I recommend some of these others I've uploaded, or subscribe to be notified of future LGR stuff, with new videos going up every week about all sorts of retro tech. And as always, thank you for watching.